Interview with Lester Hughes. It was December 1989. A few days earlier we had been married, and we were now driving south on the Blue Ridge Parkway to visit with one of the most respected legends in the dog game. In spite of the unfamiliar geography, we had little trouble arriving at our destination. The road we were on ran parallel to a mountain creek, and on the other side of that creek we soon spotted what we were looking for, a large wooden sign nailed to an old apple tree that read, "The Old Mountain Man, Kennel's Game, American Pit Bulldogs." This was the home of Lester Hughes, a man who, in the words of Tom Garner, is a living encyclopedia on the subject of the American Pit Bull Terrier. We drove across the narrow wooden bridge that connected the road to the driveway, which ended abruptly at the base of a steep hill leading up to the mountain that has been Mr. Hughes' home for all of his 68 years. When we got out of our car, we realized that it was a lot colder here than in the foothills where we live. To the left was the house, and Mr. Hughes greeted us at the door. He projected the calm self-confidence of a man who had already accomplished all of his goals in life, yet the intensity of competition was still there. He introduced us to his wife, Evelyn, and their 2 children, Christine and Cole, then proceeded to put on a coat and his trademark Western-style hat. We followed him outside to see his yard of about 25 dogs. We headed up a small slope and to the right of the driveway, at the end of which was a building. Directly to our right, along the bank of the creek, were a row of kennel runs where Mr. Hughes's brood bitches and puppies are kept. These were ideally set up, 6-foot chain-link sides with the doors set 2 feet off the floors, an insulated doghouse attached to each kennel from the outside, with a small door in the side of each house to allow instant access to a bitch with puppies or a sick dog. Each pen has an automatic waterer and built-in food tray. The best feature of these kennels is that each one is elevated on a sturdy wooden deck. Mr. Hughes simply sprays them down with a high-pressure hose, and everything rinses down between the boards. At that time, the dogs in those kennels included Holly, a daughter of C.H. Jeep Rom out of Jean's Honey, Black Mert, a daughter of Grove's GRCH Outlaw, Baby Jane, a very good daughter of Crenshaw's Screamer, plus some pups off Eli 3, Midnight Cowboy breeding. Just past the kennels was the building we'd seen from the driveway. We were surprised to find as we entered that it was warm inside. The building had heat, electricity, and running water. This building, which consists of a small office, a heated whelping room, a bathroom, and a carpeted main room, has been the site of a lot of bulldog history over the years. The back door led out onto a deck over the creek, and a series of narrow bridges and catwalks that crisscrossed the creek. Behind the building, the creek, which despite the intense cold, was not frozen over and filled the air with the sound of roaring water, splits into 2 branches and then rejoins, forming a small island of rock. On this island, and on both banks of the creek, were a number of barking bulldogs running back and forth on overhead cable runs and trying to get our attention. Each dog's setup consists of either a winterproof doghouse or a barrel partly embedded in the riverbank and a long, sturdy overhead cable run. The dogs drink fresh water from the creek itself and seemed quite at home hopping back and forth across the water on the rocks. Mr. Hughes is Lester Hughes, the mountain man. 63 dogs were in the best of health, and among them were Longswordo, an inbred son of C.H. Jeep who has proven to be quite a producer; Daisy, C.H. Jeep, Rom, XGR-CH Miss Rage; Bandit, GR-CH Outlaw, XRC's Molly; Lil Bill Jr., CH, Lil Bill X Shayna, plus an assortment of very well-bred young dogs. Mostly Eli bred through Rascal, Buster, and Cowboy lines. That was the first of many times we have visited the Old Mountain Man. We feel honored to know a man who is truly one of the dinosaurs of the dog game, and are grateful to have had the opportunity to learn from him. Mr. and Mrs. Hughes have been most generous with their hospitality, welcoming us into their home and offering us their friendship. Mr. Hughes became involved with bulldogs about 45 years ago, although it was not until about 20 years ago that he became well known in the mainstream dog game. By the 70s, he had become known as the Old Mountain Man. He has seen a lot of great dogs in action in his near half-century in the game, and played a part in the careers of more than a few of them. He is not a man who brags about his many accomplishments or has anything negative to say about another dogman, and his word is his bond. He doesn't get involved in any of the petty squabbles or gossip so prevalent in the dog game, and is a remnant from an era when all that was required to seal a business deal was a handshake and one's word. A few years back, some boys drove down from the Bronx, New York to buy a grown dog, Mr. Hughes told us one time. They didn't have enough money with them to buy the dog they wanted, so I let them go ahead and take the dog home and send me the money later. Mr. Hughes shook his head and smiled. Everyone told me I'd never see the money, but the rest of the money came in the mail from New York, just as they'd promised. He has a keen eye for the dogs and a great deal of insight into their behavior. We have heard it said that Lester can see in 5 or 10 minutes what it would take most people an hour to see in a dog, and we have come to value his opinion of a dog more than our own. We have seen him observe what appears to be an ace in action, and when asked for his opinion simply state that another 10 minutes he would have stopped. Or after watching a young dog thoroughly embarrass its owner, tell the owner to wait another month and try it again. A lot of dogs that came close to being culls at 18 months turned out to be fast-lane dogs, with just a bit more time to mature thanks to his wisdom. Mr. Hughes's philosophy is that they'll all quit, just some will quit a lot sooner than others. He has also taught us a lot about why different dogs quit. He saw the old C.H. Rascal dog lose a match and win several others, and said of the loss, "It was a quit because of the heat. He was not afraid of the other dog. In fact, when they got him cooled down, he was struggling to find his opponent." It does make sense that a dog who fails to scratch because his senses are beginning to fail him because of heat, severe injuries, exhaustion, or shock should not be placed in the same category as a dog who stands the line because he does not want any more of what his opponent is dishing out. We asked him how he thought the dogs of today compared with the caliber of dog being campaigned when he first got into the game. He told us that the overall quality of fast-lane dogs today is considerably higher than 30 or 40 years ago, and that there are a lot more super high ability, hard-mouthed, deep game dogs around. He also told us that the way gameness is looked upon has changed, particularly as applies to cold dogs. Cold was not a term that was in the vocabulary or the minds of the average dogman 40 years ago. A dog was either game or a cur. Mr. Hughes felt that the breeding careers of a lot of potential great producers were stopped short by this way of thinking. "I started fighting dogs when I was a teenager," Mr. Hughes began. We were sitting at his kitchen table with him and his wife and had asked him how he got into bulldogs. Back then, everyone had some kind of dog, and there was always a dog fight going on somewhere around here. I had a big collie then, supposedly a purebred, but looking back I imagine there must have been some bulldog in him, because he had a big old head with big lips and must have weighed about 75 pounds. His name was Jack. We used to take him all over the county, and he had whipped just about every dog in the area that anyone had. One day, me and my uncle were sitting with Jack on the riverbank by the road here. Mr. Hughes gestures out the window at the road on the other side of